Hello and welcome to Kayak Fishing Weekly on the Serious Angler Podcast Network. If you're new to the show, we're the show on the network that deals with all things kayak fishing. And we are coming off one of the biggest weeks in the sport of bass fishing, arguably the biggest event in our sport, the Bassmaster Classic. And for the last few years, Bassmaster has had the Kayak Series Championship coincide with the Classic. So we finish up the day before day one of the pros on the Elite Series, their competition, and all of the other qualifiers. And yeah, we had our championship. So I'm happy to. We're going to talk a little bit about that. That's what I want to highlight in the news. Before I jump too much into that, I want to talk about upcoming events because I know I'm going to forget otherwise. So we've got a couple events. Hobie has got a tournament on Lake Norman, Hobie Bass Open Series, Lake Norman, April 6th and 7th. Now, this is going to be sort of reverting to the old school man-powered only rules, but that's going to be a fun tournament. I don't know yet whether I'm going to be able to make it. It's actually really close. It's probably the closest a tournament venue has ever been to my home. So I'm hoping I can make it. Not sure yet, but for anybody that doesn't know, that should be a fun event. Same weekend, um, kayak bass fishing has got a trail series event on Lake Gunnersville and Wheeler Lakes. That's going to be that same Saturday, Sunday, April 6th and 7th. And then I guess I should have done this in different order, but April 3rd, 4th, and 5th is the Kayak Bass Fishing National Championship, also on Gunnersville Wheeler. So I think the thinking there is if you travel for that tournament, it's a 3-day event, big championship event, and then you can stick around for Saturday, Sunday, and get 2 trail events to count towards your Angler of the Year total. So lots of big tournaments on the horizon. I'm still I know I'm going to do the KBF championship. I'm not 100% sure whether I'm going to make the trail or the Hobie following that, but that's what's on the horizon for me anyway. And then we'll jump into details because we have a very special guest. Very excited to talk to him. But before we jump into that, I want to talk about just sort of give some recognition to the top 5 for the Bassmaster Kayak Series Championship. For me, it was a very difficult event. I was down in the hundreds. I did not have a good tournament at all, but these guys did. So I'll start in 5th place, Lance Burris, 173 inches. 4th place, Damian Tao, 177 and a quarter inches. And it gets tight here at the top. Bennett Nall, 178 inches, 178 and a quarter inches, losing the tiebreak to the runner-up, Guillermo Gonzalez. Everybody knows Guillermo, great dude, won a lot of tournaments all over the place. Guillermo also had 178 and a quarter inch, won that tiebreaker, and then the eventual winner, in case you've been living under a rock, Mr. Drew Gregory, 180 and a half inches. So that's how that tournament shook out. I'm excited to have Drew with us this week. Um, I know he's been doing appearances. He's talked on his own podcast. I know he's been guest all over the place. So I don't want to take too much of his time up, but I'm excited to welcome to Kayak Fishing Weekly. He's our first 2-time guest, Mr. Drew Gregory. Drew, welcome.
Yeah, thanks, man. That's crazy because I was just on, so it's first two-time guest. It's crazy. I was just on a couple of
Yeah,
weeks ago. So that's
exactly.
pretty wild. And I will say it like this, Justin Hamner, when I was in the media room after I won, and he came in after day one and took the lead of that Bassmaster Classic, the funniest thing I ever heard, they were all over him and they said, man, all right, sorry, we got, and there's just a line waiting to talk to him because he's leading the Classic. And they were like, sorry, you're exhausted and, just a few more. And he's like, look, he goes, y'all might not want to talk to me tomorrow. So I'll talk as long as y'all want to talk, and he's, kind of
It's a
how
very
he's
good point.
aloof. So I'll talk as long as you want to talk because you may not want to talk to me after, next tournament or next week when there's something else going on. So
There you
happy to
go.
be here. And yeah, just super, super cool event, obviously. And great job shouting out that top 5. I mean, they earned it. Anybody in that top 10. So excited to be here and hash it all out and got some different pictures and videos and all kinds of stuff to share with you guys that we've not shared on other shows yet. So take it from a different
Yeah,
stand.
I'll warn everybody. I'm not as technically proficient with this as Bailey, so I know you got to show some cool clips on the
Yeah.
main show
Yeah.
the other night. I'm hoping that I can figure out how to get those to actually work on our show too, because that was really cool.
It-
And that's one thing I wanna get into is your camera setup because I want my stuff to look good when I do catch fish, and
yeah,
I wanna try to
absolutely.
put together something similar. But I guess,
Absolutely.
I mentioned you had to win 180 inches, and we talked beforehand, and
Hmm.
I can already feel myself going down a rabbit hole, but we were talking offline a little bit. It was kind of funny. Justin Hamner was a guest on the Serious Angler show.
Yep.
Like, I don't remember exactly how many days before the classic, but very close to it. You were a guest on this show. So maybe we're good luck or something.
I know, I know. That's what I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, man, you guys got the podcast bump. So I need to come onto your show every time before a big tournament. So or
Yeah.
whoever does, watch out for them. If there's like betting, like whoever's on this show, Kayak Fishing Weekly or Serious Angler, trust me, I'd put some money on those guys. So they're gonna get the bump.
And I'll be honest, when we were talking, I know we talked about we both have a sort of similar style. We like to power fish, we like shallow
Yeah.
water, backwaters and stuff. And I was thinking at that time that, hey, it might be a player. When I got there and saw the lake, saw how clear it was, it's a true highland reservoir. Beautiful lake, interesting. It's sort of a unique puzzle. I didn't
It
find
is.
anything that I thought I could make that shallow stuff work in. And in my head, I'm
Yep.
thinking, well, that's out the window. I went and looked at some of the area that you fished, but I did not get anywhere near what you were able to, or like the area that you accessed. And I think
Yep.
that was one of the coolest takeaways for me hearing you talking with Bailey and Andy. But I guess let's back up a little bit
Sure.
and I know we were talking about that strategy, getting in some backwaters in as we're, leading up to. But what was your strategy beforehand? Was your strategy and I guess did it change at all once you got there? Kind of like mine did. Did you stick with that, hey, I'm gonna be able to make this shallow deal work, or did it change?
I mean, it pretty much stayed the same. I mean, because I fish the way I do without electronics and I just fish shallow water, backwaters, and places like that, rivers and creeks, it really limits where I can fish in a lake. It's very, very limiting on this lake in particular. It's not like you got grass patches out there in the middle that, or cypress trees you can go hide in or other rivers and creeks. There's just that one. So when I was leading up to the event, there was a river gauge, 3 or 4 river gauges upstream that had a temperature parameter on it, so I could see how it was looking. We had some great weather, an unusually warm spring, so that was all like working in my favor. I was like, yes, okay, the river might play because rivers are hard in the winter, early spring. The lakes turn on first, so this event is always like a little early for really what I love to do. Usually our stuff kind of gets going a little bit later. But because of that warm water temperatures, I was like pretty optimistic about it. And so it was hitting over. It was over at one point. It was 63 degrees in the river before we got there.
Mhm.
However, we had cold, several cold nights, leading up to the event. I think Saturday and Sunday night, or maybe it was Sunday, Monday night, were pretty cold. Pretty cold. One day it didn't even get above 50 degrees. Like
Oh,
the
that was
whole day,
miserable.
it's just dropping. On Monday, it was just, I think it was Monday, maybe temperatures dropping. Again, our tournament, if you guys didn't follow along, was Wednesday and Thursday. So I was definitely optimistic, and then when I got there, it never changed. I was able to find big fish that I knew there was big fish in that river. It's always been on my bucket list. Tenkiller's got the right kind of smallmouth. They put them in there after a big fish kill. It's got Florida strain largemouth, or at least some hybrid of Florida strain and F1s or something like that. So the fishery is good in the lake and the river, which we saw. The lake showed out really well, too. But I was surprised at how big the largemouth got, up that river. I knew the smallies were going to be in there, but definitely was surprised on how big the largemouth were. But yeah, I mean, it just kind of, just like you said, I mean, it's changed for me. It stayed the same. I was able to get up there and catch some big ones on pre-fishing and on, I think it was Saturday when the weather was good, and looked at the water levels. It was still coming down from a rain, but it was still up a pretty good amount. Hadn't even crested yet from the rain. I was, only concerned about the water just falling and getting clearer, clearer, and clearer, like you said. And I was able to power fish them for the most part, except for basically one fish. But Guillermo did that on the lake. He found a way to throw a big swim bait and make it work on the lake too. So yeah,
True.
I guess it was possible in certain areas on the lake to do that as well. But like you said, clear water usually lends itself to the a lot of the live scope game. You're drop shots, just real finessey Ned stuff and spinning
Yeah.
rod stuff that, you and I don't really like to fish when we don't have to.
Yeah, and
But
it's a good point, and I think I don't know, for me, when I saw the clarity, it was kinda weird because when I got up to that, the furthest launch we were allowed to use, it was clear. It was clearer than I was expecting. But then as
mhm,
you get a little bit further down the lake, kind of where the river
yeah,
dumps in, it got a little stained, and that was
stain.
the dirtiest water that I could find, and then there was not much of that, and then all of a sudden it just goes to gin clear
Mhm,
all the way, 2/3 of the lake or
right.
more to the dam. And,
Hmm.
what I was seeing, the way I was, catching the few that I caught, everything seemed to be relating to bait in the lake. There were
Yeah.
some very big fish that were getting caught. I talked to guys that were smashing them on live scope. I saw some really impressive fish that guys were sending me before the tournament, kind of messing with my head. Not on purpose. I don't think that was their
Yeah.
intention,
Yeah.
but
I
it
mean, yeah,
definitely like
there were
I'm
some
like,
good
oh my
ones.
gosh.
Jody was holding up big smallmouth. The Christine Fisher caught a giant smallmouth on a really cool video clip where she skips under a dock. I mean, there was a lot of stuff was going
Siddiqui
on, man. Yeah, Siddiqui was smashing them. Yeah, he
97
posted.
inches one day. And
Yep.
some of these guys were saying it wasn't like they were going and pounding an area and beating it up, like, they were just moving around spot to spot, but it was tough to do that 2 days in a row, at least it's what the tournament showed.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of guys that had one good day, um, but not a whole lot of guys that put together 2, and nobody that put together 2 like you did up the river.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I think Bailey made a point the other night that I agree with completely. Said, You're one of the best guys when it comes to strategy, and the coming up with a way to access backwater, was cool, but to me, even you mentioned a detail where you launched on that Saturday. That was your first day for practice, right? The first day that you were
Saturday.
there?
Yeah, I got there probably midday Saturday. Yep.
Furthest most launch, but you actually went away from the main ramp.
Right.
So that guys wouldn't see you. I
Yep.
was like, "Oh my gosh, I've never thought to try that, like, hide the car somewhere where they."
I mean, you're a good angler. People know you've had a lot of success. So, but if it really only matters if you have had success, you know what I mean? Like I've got trophies all around. Like people see me, they think, and it's not actually always true. I mean, this time it was because I found those fish there, but I'm just pre-fishing like everyone else. I don't know what's good, what's not. I just know what I've pinned and I want to explore on my pre-fishing maps, waypoints that I've marked and rivers and creeks and backwaters and places so I don't know if it's good or not, but somebody will see me and all of a sudden they're like, oh, I saw where Drew is. And I mean, it might be overkill. Maybe it is, maybe it's not, but I know that every other bass boat pro, when they practice, they're always like, leave their juice as fast as they can. They get out of there. They don't want to be seen by any other pro. Cause then that pro is going to go over there and scan that same thing and see why was Patrick Walters over there? Let me go see that, once he's gone. So there's a game within the game, you know what I mean? To tournament
Oh,
fishing.
definitely.
There's a game within the game in terms of even understanding where the easiest, most community hole juice is. So you kind of know where it might be an A spot, but it's not going to be a winning spot because it's going to be found by too many people too easily. It's going to get broken up. Therefore, you don't even waste your time with it, sort of thing. There's just a game within the game. And that was one of the strategies. I didn't want to be seen. I saw one other kayak angler up there. He was across the river floating down. We waved, and I don't know who it was or if he knew who I was. And that was the only kayak angler I ever saw during pre-fishing. Because after that one day, I ended up going upstream to launch at different, launches that were out of, weren't our legal like launches for the tournament, but they were further up.
Right.
So I could continue to explore up the river and see, because I went about 3.5 miles up that first day from that horseshoe bend, caught some good fish. I knew they were there. And then I went to other launches and made sure I floated all the way down to that same point and then worked my way up to ensure I could do it with the torpedo and the paddling. And caught fish, and that's when I can even show a video clip here where I was like, I went back to being a NASCAR. Here, I'll pull it up, and you have to add it to the screen, but it's easy. When it pops up there, you'll see. Just
Got
click
it.
on that. So that's me when I'm testing it. This is at Carter's Park where the water was muddy, like you said, at the upper end of the lake. This is me testing my torpedo and getting it to draft shallower and go as fast as I could on that Crescent Kayak Shoaly. And I used to get 6.2, and after working with it and trimming it and everything, I could do weight distribution, I ended up getting it up to 6.7 because I knew I was going to need every bit of power I could. And that's actually that's a decent amount, 6.2 to
That's fast.
6.7. That's a decent increase that I was able to get. So combining that with paddling to get up some of those shallow water areas that are just, 5, 6, 7 inches deep sometimes, real shallow. But if you don't have that setup, that kayak, there's probably other kayaks that could do it too, but there's not many. I know the Strolley can do it. I can't speak to the other ones, but that one definitely could do it with the right river hole combined with the innovative Sportsman rock guard, the grass cutter blade, which didn't really matter on this event, and then the steering triangle they make. It's a little bit stouter, those 3 upgrades in the Torpedo 1103 were key. And then obviously knowing how to rig it all, you gotta really be like a little your own pit crew, but it's no different than somebody that's working their tail off and studying how live scope works and those sonars and the angle and whatever you call it that you use to spin and scan it, right? All the different devices that are out there. It's like, it's the same thing. You guys are your own little pit crew trying to like dial in and make it as clear and as accurate as possible with a harness or the right batteries. It's no different. I'm just doing something, that catches them shallow. That helps me get to catch them as shallow as possible. You guys are doing something to help you catch them, not always deep, but primarily a little bit deeper and offshore where you can't see the structure that they're on until you have that tool. So it's just cool that fish, this fish lives shallow, deep, muddy, clear, vegetation, rock, wood. I mean, on everything. You get to fish how you want to fish to catch them. So
I think that it's awesome that you found a way to make your style work. And that strategy part, like not only did you kind of you tried to be discreet that first day of practice, but I think the even cooler thing is that you went, it's like, well, I know this is where I'm gonna launch, but how about I just go fish further
yeah,
upriver? Like I was like, oh my gosh, I never even would have thought of that. Like that you
yeah,
go fish stuff, like you can't get to it anyway. If you go
right.
15 or 20, I don't know exactly how
I was
far up
way
you
up there,
went.
13 to 14, 15 miles up from our launch during pre-fishing just to see how the river fished, like to try to figure out
Yeah,
how to catch them without burning my own fish.
exactly.
Because locals were fishing it too. They were hitting it. I mean, I was like, man, they're getting hit by the locals. Our anglers weren't getting up as far as I got. And I mean, truth be told, most of my fish were probably in that range that you guys could have all got to, but it wouldn't have won the tournament. I still needed to get up there to get a couple key fish, which we'll talk about later. And I've
Yeah.
got some video to show. So it ended up being the difference. I mean, for sure.
And
But
that
yeah,
part of it, like, not only did you find a way to not only beat up your fish, but find water that's virtually it's the same
right.
water, just a different stretch of it, so you can actually
Hmm.
figure out how to catch them too. You can set the hook, like, you can I mean,
Yeah. Don't worry
you
about burning them. Yeah.
and there's not, 50 other guys, throughout the 3 or 4 days that everybody's there that are kinda in the same
Hmm.
water, cannibalizing each other's fish, which I think
Right.
happened. I think the lake definitely had the potential to win that tournament.
It
Guillermo, it was
definitely.
very close, but I think some of those guys, I talked to some guys that they didn't see each other in practice, but they find out on tournament day, and not
Right.
even necessarily on day 1, but, they're hitting different areas and, "Oh, wow, you were here too?" And, you talk
Exactly.
to a guy who I caught, a couple 18s off this spot. "Oh, I got a 17 and a 20," and, I mean, you
Hmm.
start thinking how many fish out of these different schools got pressure from different anglers where yours, you found a stretch that you wanted to fish. Maybe a few guys got up in that stuff close to the ramp, but all that water further up, that's virgin water that it's like
Yeah.
you have it to yourself, and I think that part of it is really cool to me. Like, I would love to find something in a tournament sometime.
Yeah.
Like, one of the best tournaments I actually honestly, the 2 wins that I had, um,
Kind of.
you know, it was to myself. It wasn't necessarily super sneaky and hard to get into. It was just it worked out that nobody else was in there, and
Yep.
people were trying other things, and I had it to myself.
I do
And
remember the one in Florida because I pre-fished that same, and that was my second spot I was going to go to on. Well, we didn't have day two; it was just a 1 day tournament,
it
I
was a
believe,
one
that
day
year,
then, yeah.
Bassmaster. But that was where that was like if my primary spot didn't work out, I was going to move there to that spot, and because I pre-fished it as well and had some pretty big bites in there,
Mm.
and so that's funny. But then the first spot ended up working out. I got seventh, obviously didn't win, but I caught a 23 and a half on the third cast. So I was like, okay, I guess I'll just stay here. So I never went over to the other spot.
I remember that
And-
footage
but
too,
yeah, you
the
did.
flopper, right?
Yeah, it was on a
plopper
floppy
and
there.
buried in the grass.
That was nuts, man. But yeah, your events, you've definitely found some, and that's kind of like, if you think about it, really, is it any different than someone who finds something with electronics out in the middle of the lake that is to them? We're all looking for fish to ourselves.
Hmm.
That's the name of the game. That's it for tournament fishing. That is it. We're all looking for it. It's there's and there's respect should be given to anglers no matter what style they choose to find those fish that are unpressured or hidden or whatever you want to call it. And you and I kind of tend to do it more in a visual way, and other people love to do it with electronics, and all of it gets the job done. It can get the job done. You saw how
It does.
close my total was to the lake guys, and like you said, maybe just a fish loss here or there from one of them, and they could have won. So it was very tight. I mean, a couple inches is pretty tight.
Yeah. So I want to circle back a little bit. You showed the video of you testing, and that's
Yeah,
another part of the strategy. You're people are seeing you in the lake, but you're just like they don't necessarily
it's
know
just
what you're
testing,
doing. Oh, I
right?
saw Drew today. I'm gonna go fish there.
Hmm.
But all that you're doing is working on equipment. And you mentioned,
Yeah.
so I know about Innovative Sportsman. Trey makes some great stuff. His rock guard, I feel like everybody that runs a Torpedo has one. I'm hoping he'll come out with one that'll fit the Newports also.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure
Um,
he's got it in the works.
but that you mentioned a steering triangle. That's
Yep.
an Innovative Sportsman's part that he makes. That's like
Hmm.
aftermarket.
It
I did
is.
not know
Yep.
that.
Yeah. The Torpedo one, at least on the original, this 1103 that's out now, I think a new one that's coming out, the new Torpedo, has a steering triangle that's probably more similar to Trey's from Innovative Sportsman, but it's all aluminum. There's no plastic component in it. You know what I mean? Where you clip in, because those will. I've had them break even. It's plastic. A lot of that component is plastic, and it will break when you hit. You know what I mean? You're going fast and hard, like it's just snapped. I mean, I have one that's just broken in half. So having
Gotcha.
it be all aluminum is bulkier and beefier. So it holds up to a lot of the stuff that I love to do. And I beat that thing up against rocks and logs, and just who knows what it gets. What it hits all the time. So if you don't have that stuff, you're donezo.
Yeah, that's definitely something to think about for guys that are fishing that style, fishing those shallow rivers.
Yep.
I might have to. I don't know if it'll be compatible with. I know the Torpedo and the Newport are very similar. I don't know that it's compatible, but I'm going to find out.
Yeah, you can
Uh,
get it. I'm sure to work. I mean, your local welder can make an adjustment on or something to whatever they got to do. I'm sure it'll work somehow. If not, he surely has one in the works, like Trey does. It'd be crazy for him to make one that fits the Newport.
the other thing that you mentioned, the adjustments.
Hmm.
So I've got an Outback. You mentioned you got up to 6.7.
Hmm.
That's crazy to me.
Yep.
And to somebody who's not a kayak fisherman, that may not seem fast, but my top end speed in my Hobie Outback is somewhere in it's a little over 5 miles an hour.
Right.
Now, if I didn't have I could probably do some things like reduce the gear that I'm bringing to maybe get it up a
Hmm.
little bit, but
Yep.
you're running almost 2 miles an hour faster than me, which
Yeah.
when we're t you're that's massive, uh, for our sport.
In a tournament, man, time is essentially casts, and casts are money. I mean, it's essentially, you know what I mean. So, like, how many elite guys don't run a 250? Like nobody except for Keith Poche. Basically, he only does it so he
Yeah,
can have a smaller motor to trim it up and get a little shallower than everybody else. So other than him, why would you want to be slower than anybody else or slower than the maximum they're letting you go for speed for more casting time? In our sport, that's it's where it's heading. I mean, you've got to be at the maximum, or you're essentially losing some cast and time to your competitors. I mean,
yeah.
so the biggest
Like,
motor you can get.
you can get to that spot and, you and I are going to the same area, but you're gonna have, I don't know, 5, 10, 15 minutes, and
Yeah.
that can be a lifetime in a tournament
Yeah.
when you hit a feeding window.
Yeah, and then you go to another spot, and you're faster to your next, and you get to run a mile over here. Well, now you just gain time on that mile, and then you run half a mile here. You just gain time on the field that it would take them to do all these moves, right? So it's definitely part of the strategy in the game. It's no different, but our motors are outboards and our trolling motor for fishing too. They're both. So
Yeah,
you got to think about like the outboard first. Like you need it to be able to go as fast as possible and just get your setup properly trimmed, get it, the weight distribution. I've had 3 batteries in the front, 2 in the hatch of the Shoaly and 1 in that cubby on the front. And that weight, angled down was helpful. And I could lean forward and get a little bit more. I get up to 6.7 when I lean just a little bit forward. Plus I move my seat forward
Gotcha.
and strap that seat down with the cam straps. So it's not in its normal seat position. And actually I was using the high seat from Crescent that doesn't fit in the Shoaly. Like it doesn't
Gotcha.
fit inside the actual like grooves for the seat, but it fits in the sense that it was just sitting on the pad kit. You know what I mean? Just forward 6-8 inches forward than my normal seated position. So that gets me forward, combined with those batteries forward, like everything more forward. So it levels that boat out. And once it
Gotcha.
starts sucking and chewing, and it's about 6-7 inches of water is about as shallow as I could get it to eat, full blast. But once you can lean back a little bit and get it to start, sometimes you almost have to do like a paddle stroke backwards to make some waves and get it to like suck and full blast. And then once it's going and it's actually chewing, you can lean forward and it stays. It doesn't like start cavitating.
Gotcha.
Once it's just got the right suction happening with the water, you can lean forward and get it 6.7. So for the
I would
Shoaly,
never have thought to try that.
it was just,
So yeah,
yeah.
and I know Jeff has done videos. I think he has a cheat sheet that he put together from all the rigging he did on different boats,
Yep.
max speed for different boats. I don't know if he shared that publicly, but that that seems like one of those things you were talking the other day about
Yeah.
what's the name of the tip site? The
Oh, fish tips.
fish tips. Like,
Yeah,
I feel like that's something hey, I'll for X amount of dollars, you can buy my
exact
I can show you how to get
setup.
your rig like to the
Yeah.
maximum speed.
Yeah,
But that
that's
like
true.
I never would have thought to move the seat forward on, to I've forgotten my seat before in my Hobie. I went to Florida and left the seat at the house and was trying to sit on a milk crate and do all sorts of stuff. I would never try to move my seat like forward. I don't even know that it'd be possible to do. There might
Yeah.
be a way. Now, did you have it? You said you had a cam strap securing it so that it was not sliding
Yeah,
around at all?
yeah, exactly. So I had to have how many did I have on there? I mean, at least 2, but I think I may have had more. But basically, you just wanted it to be not wobbling around, when you're, but the good news is I cranked it down tight and there were some impressions in the pad kit it would make. So it would kind of hold in there, once
Gotcha. You
for
get
those
some grip
legs
with
of
that.
the seat would kind of hold there. But yeah, I just cranked them down tight and it's good to go, man. So
That's
it's
awesome.
pretty wild.
So
Yeah.
so we've gone through practice. You found an
Yep.
area. You know where you're going to fish.
Did.
You've you've tricked out the kayak to maximize the speed to where you can access these places.
Yep.
Now I'm assuming that some of these areas that you had to run up, it's the currents moving because it looked on a map anyway. Like you've got some wider sections of river and then it
Hmm.
funnels down. And I,
Yep.
I imagine the currents moving in those choke points.
It is. Exactly. It's moving. And I was gonna maybe pull up even some pictures of the free fishing right here. Hang on, let me try to get them up, and then we'll talk about those. Let me just
Yeah, because
share
I'm
mine.
curious. I know
Right
I tried. I think it
there
wasn't
we go.
Kentucky Lake. I'm trying to remember. Maybe it was Kentucky Lake.
You can share that screen. Yeah,
I
and let me
think it
know
was.
when you see this.
Yeah, gotcha. I think it was Kentucky Lake a couple years ago. I tried to run up, and I think the current speed was something like 4 miles an hour, and I could not
Yes,
get up it
very
with
very. So yeah,
just my
there's a lot
pedal
of
drive.
choke points. Yep, that were very swift and shallow. And just so you guys can kind of follow along. This is pre-fishing. This is
There we
when
go.
I'm just yeah. If you guys got this pictures there.
You caught that
So
in practice?
practice is a 20.5 inch largemouth in practice,
Lord.
super fat. That right there is the fish that I think I'm going to go back and look at the picture of this fish. It might be the same fish. I caught this in practice. You can see him in short sleeves. It was nice and warm. That little beaver brush pile behind me there is where it was. And that right there, looking back, looking where you can see all that water behind me, that's a slough
Mhm.
that goes up the rivers. That's not the main river. That's just a slough, a backwater. The largemouth were living in the sloughs and the backwaters, which typical, murkier. It was stained by the beavers that were in and out of this beaver dam. It would stain up a lot worse than it looks now. Trust me, it gets real red based on their movements and stuff. And then you could use this is very close to where the water actually comes in. And this is where I caught that big bass too, the biggest one that I'll show a video of, but it's very close. So you can see the water is a little bit clearer here, but
Mhm.
it's got some of that muddy water sticking with it, but the main river was like, 10, 15 foot of visibility. It was crazy. This is a different day, well further upstream when I was learning how to catch them, So the warmer weather and the 60-degree water temp, or nearly 60 if it wasn't 60, they were biting that moving stuff and the spinnerbaits a lot better, as you can see here. So
That's
but I think
awesome.
this one here, this 19-incher, which is, I just showed the picture of this fish being held up. I think it might have been the same fish because it was on the same spot during tournament day. But on tournament day, there's that same smallie again. Yeah, it's back to the beginning. But on tournament day, and you can stop sharing that if you want, so it's not Inception. But on tournament day, I went to that same spot, and I probably can pull the video up, but I actually went to the same spot, and I did not use the spinnerbait that I caught that fish on a couple of days before, 4 days before. What I ended up doing was, let me see if I can pull in this.
I saw the video because you shared a
Pull in
couple of
this
cool
video.
clips
Mm-hmm.
the other night on the Serious Angler show. You pulled up a clip. I think there were two different clips. One where you caught a great big smallmouth,
Yep, I'm
and
gonna
then there
pull
was
those in.
another one. The first one was I think it was if it wasn't the big bass of the tournament, it was one of them.
Yep,
It was a massive 22-inch fish. You were estimating
that
it
was
at 6
big.
pounds.
That was big
And
bass. Yep.
was that the same little foam pocket where that fish was? Was that the same log where you caught this big fish in practice?
Very close. I caught a fish on day one in that little foamy pocket with 16 inches, but I ended up catching the big bass at 22 in that same foamy pocket. Exact same spot, but obviously it was 22, not 16. The next day, a bigger one was sitting there. So I think I've got it here. Let me see. I think I've got this. Here we go.
That to me is.
So day one.
See if I can pull her up.
Let me see if I can. Yeah, I should have these marked green here. Let me open this up. See if I can get it to come up for you guys. I'm using it for my hard drive. So let's see. Yeah, there's the video. Let's see what one this is. What clip this is.
Here we go.
I have to scrub till we see some action. So this is me fishing that same. Yep, this is the same spot right here.
You sensed you were going to catch when you turned the camera on.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, adjust it because I know I'm about to throw it that same spot where you saw those pictures of that spinnerbait fish, and I'm pretty sure this might have been the same fish. So instead of throwing the spinnerbait, I'm throwing the jig because I want to give them a different look. The fish are smart. I mean, it might have been 3-4 days ago, but why throw the same thing when you know exactly where they are, right? I mean, so I'm throwing the jig, the cross-size power finesse jig from Z-Man, and with a Pro Crawls trailer where I cut about 1/4 inch of it off. And there we go. So never before seen footage here on Kayak Fishing Weekly, guys.
That is.
There's that little beaver thing. 19 and
the exact same fish I caught in practice. Same spot.
Yeah, so I think it was 19.5 in practice, but I'm gonna go back and look at those videos or the pictures that because I took a picture on the board of it here in practice and here in the tournament. But I caught 2 in a row on that spot, and I'm not sure if that was the first one or the second one. But either way, yeah, there you go. That was that fish. But so I fished my way up that slough, and I got a 17 3/4 back there on day one, including the 16 and that 19 3/4 that came from that exact spot. And then I caught a couple other like 16s. I had everything over 16 out of that pocket, probably mid high 80s.
So that's your starting spot.
Starting spot with largemouth. They're more reliable.
Largemouth first. Gotcha.
Yep, they're more reliable. They're than the smallies, and the clear water warms up, cools down quicker and warms up slower than that stained water. And I want to give those smallies plenty of time, the water there to warm up. And but I had to keep moving. I couldn't just wait around and let that pocket maybe reset, maybe pick up another one here or there because I got a long way to go upstream without much fishing going on as I'm working my way up there. Sometimes it's, I'll cast just why not? But you're flying as fast as you can, and it didn't do that good in some of the spots in between there, my main spot. So I'm moving, but I get upstream and I'll show you the next.
I can only imagine. I mean, I know 5 miles an hour, it's very hard to fish. I mean, even slow it down from that, me pedaling as fast as, trying to pedal at a good clip and fish. It's like, you better be real accurate with your cast. You better have a high speed reel, get your bait into that spot, out of that spot quick, because your boat's going to go past it and you're gone. And if you don't, you're going to get wrapped up in stuff. And it's difficult to fish at very much speed and 6 miles an
yeah.
hour. I mean, I can't imagine being
Yeah.
super efficient.
Yeah. See if
All
that
right, so
next clip
this
right
other
there
one's
is. This is. I gotta zoom it forward to
ooh,
where the actual.
that's some clear water.
There we go. Here's where the fish catch happens.
Ah, now
Right
this
here.
is
This is
day
where
one.
day one. Okay, so before this happens, just so everyone knows, about halfway up my run, my Torpedo gives me an error code. And you beat these things up. I mean, they're not like invincible. You know, they're incredible what they can handle. I can't believe what they can handle. Every time I fish with these things and beat them up, I'm blown away. But it did give me an error code, and it wouldn't work for like 20 or 30 minutes. I didn't know what to do. I was just changing batteries, trying powering it on and off, and then just saying some prayers. And somehow it came back on. I mean, I had a good limit already, but somehow it came back on. So I eventually got my way up here to this spot, way up where I'd seen some good ones in practice and caught them. Well, yeah, the final day of practice, I figured out how to catch them finally here. And hang on, yeah, there we go. There's the bite. And this is where I realize it's a good fish. This is on the Z-Man Gobius. Making sure my camera's on.
And that Gobius, I've not thrown it, but if I'm not mistaken, that's real similar to that dark sleeper.
Yes, it
Similar
is. Yep.
profile and
Exactly.
lead, basically a little bluegill or goby style imitation, small bait fish,
Yep.
kind of a fat head, single hook.
Exactly what it is. It looks just like a river darter. That's why I used it. It looks just like a river darter. It's a type of fish that lives in the river. And you can see I don't use a lot of spinning rods, and I mean I know how to use them, but I'm very nervous with this fish. I give a lot of slack, like anybody does fishing the St. Lawrence or whatever open water. You loosen the drag and let them do their thing. You know what I mean? It's light line, light wire. You don't want to pull that hook. So I put my hand on that reel a lot, just so you know, when I'm putting my hand over the entire reel, that, as you know, Justin, that'll stop the drag from going. So we need to pull them out of something. It doesn't let the drag continue. I have this entire fight here. This is a long fight, and I should. What's that?
It's like a manual way to
is.
control it, stop it when if the fish is coming towards you. Like you say, you try to put pressure on it, and then you can real quickly let off and let it make a run to keep from breaking.
That's right. And it's when you see them going in structures, when I have to like hold that and then pull them out of it. You know what I mean? And that's what's about to happen right here. It's a long fight, as you can see, but eventually it starts getting close to this log, and so look how long this fight I've seen. I'm actually just almost grabbed my net. I forgot I did. I was like, dude, I really need to grab that net. And I was like, nah, I'm good. Like, I just don't use a lot of nets, and it's so stupid. Like on a spinning rod fish, I really should have, but I just like the challenge of getting them with your hand. That makes no sense at all, because I'm just old school. I like that part of Bassmaster, that there's no nets. I like that. It makes no sense that I'm allowed to use a net, and I should for this fish especially.
It's more challenging.
It is. And most everything I use is single hook, chatterbait, straight braid. This is straight 8-pound braid.
8-pound.
But there's a log. It's just real thin. I mean, thin enough where I just don't feel like they see it. Swimming a little bait like this, making long casts. But there's a log you're about to see. She's going for it right now underneath there. That comes out a big old root. I'm starting to float over it right now, and she's going for it. And I did the dumbest thing. I just started grabbing the line, freaking out, because she was getting right on that log. And I lay down on a kayak and just started pulling her, which is not what you really want to be doing. So do as I say, not as I do.
God,
the bait just fell out of its mouth. Did you guys see that? So watch that last part again, when that bait the goby just flops out of her mouth. And
you get your pressure on it. You've got her in your lap, and then that bait just
yeah, barely get over the gunnel, and that bait pops out.
Are you laying on the floor at this point?
Yeah.
Oh my God, the Cobius just fell out. Oh my God.
So
that is awesome footage.
Pretty ridiculous. Yeah.
Oh.
Awesome fish.
Then you can see, and then I go over here and let her go.
Oh, yeah.
There goes
awesome.
But yeah, that was a huge fish. Obviously, called me up from a 16 to whatever it was. It's 19 and a half. Like a 4-pound smallie.
So that's you're talking 3 inches.
Go,
that's significant.
Yes. That's kind of stupid.
The weights were pretty well stacked the first day.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt.
So that puts you. I don't remember exactly.
They were very stacked. It was fourth, I believe, 90 inches.
Yeah, there were a couple guys that broke the 90-inch mark, and then there were a lot more guys in those mid to high 80s.
Yeah. Hop out to.
That's a beautiful fish.
to let her go there. And all right, so there we go. That was
awesome.
that was that one. But and then we could, so now moving on, if you want, we can talk day 2. So I ended up with 90 inches that day. And day 2, I said, well, the weather was going to be cloudy and drizzly possibly. And, so I said, well, I'd seen and spooked some big fish in some other pools down in that, on my way up to, that's as far as I got basically where that fish was caught. So I'd seen some other big fish that I'd spooked, didn't know were there. So I'm like, okay, I got that for day 2. I'm still going to start my largemouth spot, but then at least I know where some smallmouth live that I didn't know from, the pre-fishing, didn't know they were in these certain areas. But I need to find something. They're either going to be catching, I'm either going to catch one that gobious, or because it's cloudy and windy, they might eat a big bait. So I went to Jimmy Houston's Outdoors, picked up like a sinking version of the How Dangerous swim bait. Russ uses that a lot. It's had a lot of success on it. Tyler Berger's video.
The rigged one with the single hook?
Yeah, it's called Fully Loaded. Yeah, single hook rigged.
I grabbed one of those. I grabbed one in, it was like a chartreusey color.
Yeah.
But I grabbed one from the exact same store.
That's hilarious. Yeah. Shout out Jimmy Houston, man. What a good guy too. And I picked up the only one that was sinking. Here, I'll pull in a new video too for you. But I picked up the only one that was sinking was a trout pattern, right? So I was like, I don't care. They don't care. They don't really, see, first we'll show the big bass, the first bass that day, but they don't really care what it is. You know what I mean? If it's moving, it's big, and I said this on Serious Angler and everywhere else. We all know what happens if you throw a goldfish into that crystal clear water. If I throw a goldfish over by a root ball and there's a bass living there, he's going to eat it. I mean, so I didn't care if it was a trout pattern. That's all good. It was the sinking version of it. I needed to get down. So some of these heavier version, so I could get it down in that current in the pools where I'd seen them down deeper. Well, anyway, so I picked that up, and that ended up coming in later on. We'll talk about it later on what it did. But this is the big bass. The first fish I caught, I'm working my slew again, but I'm on the other side. And the foam pit where I caught a 16 the day before, first fish, I hooked this one. On a chatterbait with the new chatter spike trailer.
Yeah, I've not thrown the Z-Man version, but man.
Oh, my old faithful Project Z chatterbait. Look at the size of this thing, dude. Oh,
probably like a 6.5 pounder. Hard to tell.
Massive.
On that one, this gives a little bit better perspective of it.
You can see the gut.
Oh, that's a great way to start tournament. Morning on final day.
That is a heavy
Bassmaster
fish.
Championship.
Yeah, that style trailer, that single tail, with all that crazy action, I've caught a lot of fish on that style trailer.
Absolutely. And then in that slough, in that section here where the murky water is just mixing with the clear, and it's kind of like your 2-foot visibility, that chatterbait's great. They can really see it's a bluegill. They love to eat bluegill, big bass do, and it's great. Now, if it's crystal clear, super crystal clear, I'm probably not being able to throw that 30-pound straight braid, that chatterbait. It's where I got to go back to the gobious when I get in the main river and go up and chase my smallmouth. Or on cloudy day, that big How Dangerous swim bait that I catch the next one on. But in that perfect little zone for just this little 20-yard section of that water clarity was just right for that chatterbait. It's the only fish I caught on it. I probably threw 15 casts with it the entire tournament. One of them was at that exact spot. Again, I'm mixing it up from the day before. Day before, I caught a fish in that foamy pocket with a spinnerbait. And then I caught him on the jig in the spot where I caught him on a spinnerbait pre-fishing, but never caught anything in that foamy pocket on a spinnerbait in the pre-fishing. So I threw the spinnerbait there and caught a 16 on day 1. So I'm just mixing it up, my presentation, just in case they'd seen it. As I work my way back in the pocket, I catch another 16 on that second day. So I got a 22, 16, and then I missed 3 fish back in there. It's just fishing, man. Like one of them came off, had them on for a minute. It was down in the wood, came off, and my bait's just stuck on the wood. And another one swiped at it right at the boat and missed it. And there's a big swirl. I mean, I can't remember how the last one happened, but I missed 3. So I had 5 bites. It'd been nice to have at least 3 or 4. We're all 5 like I did the day before. I probably had 5 bites in there and caught them all. So I
imagine on day 2 of a tournament, you'd really love to have 5 and beat. I mean, that's totally different coming out of there with a limit. You can be a little bit relaxed, and you don't feel that, I got to get one right now.
Exactly. I was scared because I'd never caught in pre-fishing, and day 1 of the tournament, nothing out of that slough was less than 16 inches. Nothing. So I know they were good fish. They were all solid fish. and I didn't get them. So, but saving grace, Justin, was the fact that I had a 22, and that's a lot of room for error when you've got a 22 at the top of your bag. And I knew it might have end up being big bass of the tournament. So I just had to now just stay positive and combine that with some stuff upstream that I found from the day before. And now I got better conditions, cloudy conditions for the clear water. So maybe I could, so I fished my way up with the spinnerbait just as I'm moving real fast and a bunch of wood and some sections that are very swift. The fish weren't really there yet, but I caught a couple spotted bass. The spotted bass seem to be moving in those areas. So 2 14.5-inch spotted bass. So now I'm up to 4 fish. So I'm like, all right, I'm close to a limit. If I get one more solid fish, I'm probably on that classic stage and at least in the top 10. I ended up, because I was catching on that spinnerbait, I slowed down and fished the wood a little bit more than I thought I was going to. And I hooked a 19.5-inch, or no, 19-ish. I don't know what exactly it was, but 19 to, I'd say 19.5-inch smallmouth. It fought it for like 30 seconds and it jumped and spit through the spinnerbait. So that would have been 5. That would have been 5th. And I knew that would have put me on the classic stage for sure. It would have given me 5 fish. I mean, last year at Chickamauga, I still have like nightmares about losing those 2 giants and only ending up with 4 fish at the end of day 2. Instead of, if I would have hooked and landed both those giants, I'm holding the trophy. You know what I mean? So, I still have a little bit of like anxiety and stress about that, you know, when I think back about that, what happened in that big event the year before. So it was painful, but I took the positive from it. You know, just trusted in God that like he showed me that fish was there on that wood for a reason. And so I went further down, and you might have to start removing some of these videos in a second, but I went further upstream, I guess I should say, and ended up hooking this fish. And I only fished this wood because it's that new one I just put in right there. I only fished that wood and threw at it because I'd gotten the bites on the wood. So that 19.5-inch smallie did show me I need to cast at the wood a little bit more, and they're moving to that. So I turned the camera on the second I threw, just so you know, at the base of that root ball up ahead to my right up there, where that root ball area, I kind of threw it up there. And I mean, right on the root ball, perfect. And my kayak was where I could parallel. There's actually another log under the water, but I could parallel both those logs. And on the 3rd or 4th crank, she smashed it. And then I turned the camera on right away. Oh my God. So now I'm like, man, they are on wood, but this fish was so big. It was 21.25-inch smallie, pushing 6 pounds. And I lost my paddle here, which is a funny story. I told on Serious Angler. But watch this jump right here. When it breaches, I was like, oh my goodness. It's like a 7-pounder. That's what I thought. Oh. Freaked me out seeing that bait up the line, man. I'm not used to swim baits that go up the line like that. I was
the line drew.
Yeah.
I think it's a genius part of the design.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, what a tank. Because that, for me anyway, I'm not the biggest swim bait guy, but I know that's how you lose them. Those big heavy baits, when that fish shakes its head, it gives it leverage, it works the hook loose, and having that big hunk of plastic slide up the line away from the hook, it takes that fish's ability to throw it. I mean, I'd be terrified. I've never caught a giant smallmouth on a. I mean, I've hooked some good large. I've never had a giant smallmouth on a big swim bait. So I can only imagine, as much as they jump, the fear as that thing is coming out of the water.
Absolutely. And you can play that video. That's the front angle of it, so you can kind of see. And we can pause it and even look at the because I lean forward and turn on the front camera in the middle of the fight too, just to.
Don't jump, just don't jump.
I just want to capture everything.
Yeah, she did not listen.
No, she did not listen with that jump. That was she tried her best to come off, but there's that bait just hanging there.
Stop. Get in the boat, yes. Oh my God, what just happened? What?
And you can see, like,
my bad. Now at this point, are you? This is your 5th fish. You've got a 22 in the bag already.
Yeah, that's just 5. Yep.
And is it starting
21.25? I'm wondering now but I'm still like hungry, man. I got a 14.5 still left. One of those little spots is still left. I'm like still hungry, and there's a couple hours left in the tournament. I'm like, oh no, I want to like make sure there's no doubt. I thought maybe I had a chance at that point because I was in the upper 80s. You know, I didn't have 90.5 yet. I've got a couple hours
42, left. 43 inches with 2 fish.
Yeah, exactly.
Incredible.
So, but I will quickly, let me see. I'll share this. share my screen again. I'll show you some pictures here.
I want to give folks a little nugget
There you go.
because I've heard you talk about that chatterbait before. I've seen it. Um, everybody knows about the original chatterbait. Everybody knows about the jackhammer. I feel like the jackhammer is the gold standard when it comes to a vibrating jig, but you throw a different one.
I do. I throw the Project Z, and I've started to throw the new Evo a good bit. I do like that one as well, but the Project Z is just, if it ain't broke, don't fix it sort of thing.
Hmm.
It's got a longer hook, a little bit bigger hook, further back. It's got that the easy skirt they call it, but the skirt actually tapers down, so it looks more like that fish profile. It's got some strands that are longer, whereas a chatterbait jackhammer or the Evos, it's just a straight cut off on the skirt, just a, straight cut. And I like that extra tail pieces there. Looks more a little bit like a fish. And then I also like the line tie, that Mustad fast attach clip that they use for the line tie is better, in my opinion, a little bit stronger and better than a snap, which
Can't
is
fail
not.
on you.
It's a snap is not. That's right. It's not like symmetrical. And this is just one solid piece of wire. It's a loop and then one solid piece of wire, then the attachment. It's a symmetrical thing. So again, from like a kayak designer, I designed that Shoaly, and just things bother me if it's not balanced and symmetrical, because I know it can't be working like as, I don't know, like perfectly as it could if it was a symmetrical piece of equipment there. So I like that fast
Gotcha.
hatch. There's just a few things I like a little bit better. I like the, but there's also things I love about those other baits, and I still use them and as well and catch them. But the
But
Project
it fits your
Z,
system, I think, with your,
it
because you
does.
throw that on that 30-pound braid, so
Mhm.
it's a heavier gauge hook, it's a beefy hook, but with that braid,
Right.
like, you don't have a problem.
No.
And when you do stick one, I imagine they don't come unpinned very often.
No, they do not. They do not. And that chatter spike was great on. It's the breaking brim color. If you want to know what exactly one's called, breaking brim, Project Z from Z-Man Chatterbait, breaking brim with the chatter spike. Now a lot of times I use a 5-inch diesel minnow to give it a big profile, but I Texas rig it so the hook is barely even sticking out above the dorsal fin. I use the minnows sometimes on it. Now I will trim up the skirt on that bait, and that's where the jackhammer comes in a little bit better. The Evo, the minnows, they're a little smaller profile, or that the Mini Max chatterbait is really good for smallmouth, clear water up north. Anywhere you
I
have,
love that bait.
I love that bait. It's awesome. That's really great with that Z-Man minnows on the back as well. And so I don't know if you want to share my screen. I got some pictures up here of the fish from
Yep.
day one. Let me know when you've got it.
It's there.
It's there. All right, cool. So that's that big bass, the 22 that caught on the Project Z. That's me scoring
Beautiful.
that 21 and a quarter smallie. That's it jumping there. And there it is on the bank right before I let it go. Took one good pick and let her go. But that's
Did you
the
have any
mouth.
type of scale with you to try to get a,
I didn't. I don't know if I would have. Even if I would have had a scale, I probably wouldn't have wasted the time, honestly, to do it. I don't check the leaderboard. I don't check the standings. I didn't check any of that. Just didn't want to waste any time. But the mouth
that
on
is
that thing, the lips are like a carp. I mean, look how thick that thing is.
oh my, and
That
the
kind of
hook too,
tells you.
that's
The hook was
a good
easy. There it
hook.
is again. And there it is jumping in that jumping shot. Just how I could barely get out of the water, but that's just epic. I mean, holding my rod down, doing everything I can to not let that fish jump. I mean, you can tell my rod's all the way down in the water. I'm like, no, 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 no. But when you're 6 pounds, you do what you want, man.
Yeah.
Pretty much. And she did that, and that's that largemouth again. So, all right, that was all those. And then
Awesome.
if you wanted to keep it on here, the only thing I was going to show some pictures here from. See, I guess that's a fish we already saw on video that I caught from that little pile. Yeah, and
Oh,
there's
cool.
that 19.5-inch smallie. So yeah,
That
we've
was the
seen
day
pretty much
one smallie.
day one stuff. Yeah, they're the best ones from day one, the best couple. But
Awesome.
yeah, man, that's pretty much the deal. And then that I did end up calling up one more time with a 16 3/4-inch largemouth further up. And I got to, so this is what's crazy. I got to the
Largemouth
pools. Yeah, largemouth. Yep, 16
in
3/4-inch
that clear
largemouth.
stuff.
Oh God, yeah, they're all in that clear stuff too. They're mixed in. You get to the right slow
Okay.
pools, and when the water levels drop and the water isn't so swift, in the river, they start pulling onto the stuff that's calm. And the largemouth will be, and not in some little cuts that aren't as big as that one slough was, just smaller ones, little places that don't get direct current. they were still there, as well. But there's some bigger pools way up there that largemouth were living with the smallmouth. And I didn't know if on that big swim bait in the clouds and the wind, if I was going to hook like a big smallie or a big largie. But I was throwing it, and in the pools where I saw all the fish the day before when it was sunny, I got one hit, and I felt weight. I mean, it was good. As many as I saw up there, the fact that in those conditions with that bait, and I just caught one, an hour before, I can't believe I just didn't get hammered by another big fish, like a real big one. It just never happened. And so that just goes to tell you that if I didn't fish the moment and learn from what that fish taught me when I was throwing that spinner bait, as I was moving my way fast up the river there, and didn't slow down and say, you know what, I should probably spend more time in this wood. Man, fish, especially smallmouth, they just change and reposition from day to day. They were not in that big pool. If I would have relied only on that knowledge, which is why I was going up there, was for that one spot, because I'd fished that wood where that 21.25 was and they weren't on that in practice. They just weren't. Then I don't catch that fish if I don't pay attention and listen to the moment and what the fish were telling me that day. So fortunately I did, and the pool didn't pan out other than a 16.75 inch largemouth on a spinnerbait, which did call me up from a 14.5 and could have been a difference. 14.5 to 16.75 is probably, I only won by 2.25 inches or 2.5 or something. So that's, you may have the standings pulled up there, but that could have been honestly the difference right there. Just that
2.25
fish. So yeah, a 14.5 to a 16.75 is 2.25. So that coal really is the one that actually did it, not even the big one. I mean, obviously you needed them all, but so yeah. And I went all the way up to where I caught that 19.5 inch smallie the day before in the Gobius. Again, I'm throwing that big swim bait in the clouds, thinking it's going to happen. Nothing. And I ended thinking about the fish. Ended that tournament pretty down, thinking about the big bite on the swim bait and the 3 then the slew that I lost, and the 19.5 inch on the 19-ish smallie that I lost on the spinnerbait. I'm thinking about all those, thinking I lost this thing. I should have had 95, 98 inches, something like that. And but fortunately it was just enough, and you just need, to win by 1/4 inch. So I was able to pull it off. So it's crazy.
Yeah. When it's your time, it's your time, but it's also, you turned a positive. You were able to stay positive and turn a negative into a positive. That for a lot of people, I know me personally, if I've got a shot on the final day of a tournament and I lose 3 good bites in an area where I haven't gotten a little fish, like I'm starting to spin out. I mean, most of the time
it happens,
that's going to be
man.
what happens to me. And then I go and lose another good one that I get a good hook in it and I can see it's a great big fish that would have helped me. Instead of melting down and, throwing stuff and breaking stuff, you're like, all right, maybe they're on the wood now. And you go upriver and catch that 21 on a piece of wood and basically seal your tournament. That's
taking
it.
of
It's not just luck. There's, I know there's people that think, oh, well, you just get lucky sometimes, but there's the ability to stay calm and stay positive when everything feels like it's collapsing and crumbling is why, you have all of that hardware around you.
Yeah. I mean,
one of the reasons.
It's one of the, for sure. You got to learn to deal with that stuff. And don't get me wrong. I definitely have had my moments of stress and anxiety. And like I said, nightmares where I still think back about some tournaments, but it's an individual sport. You can't win them all. If this is going to happen, you just got to stick with it, stay positive, and hopefully just keep doing the best you can to raise your floor in events. In other words, like, a winning spot, you can survive some blows. That's the idea. You want to find a spot that's so good, a winning spot, it's just, very hard to fish clean. It is. So you got to find places like this where you can actually survive some blows, lose some fish, and still end up winning. So yeah, it's
an amazing tournament. I mean, just amazing. And I know you've done about everything you can do in our sport. Up until this tournament, that one thing that you were looking for still was a win in a championship, and you've got it.
Yeah, I feel like the weight's been lifted, man. It really.
Oh, I can only imagine. I can only imagine. I've one other thing I wanted to to ask you before I let you go is your
Yeah.
GoPro setup, because
Yep.
I've been talking, on the podcast for months now about how I'm going to do a better job, and I'm going to start running the GoPro and actually recording the footage and try to do stuff on YouTube. And I've still not done it. I've got some of the parts, I just haven't actually put it all together and gone out and
Yeah.
figured it out. But I really like your setup, and you've had a good setup for a long time. I remember seeing your video from 2020 on Dardanelle where you catch that giant fish way back in a
Yep.
backwater
Oh
area.
yeah, yeah. I
Um,
can try to pull up a picture here of the setup because I think from pre-fishing. Let me pull up my screen. You can bring it in.
sure.
This is just what I've done here. Let's see.
It's a GoPro, right?
Yep, GoPro. This is a Hero 11.
11,
Um,
okay.
so let me pull this up. Where am I at here? Downloads.
Now, have you used the 360 at all? I know guys that are playing around with that and like it a lot.
Yeah, I have used it, but it takes different editing and different software, so it's a little harder to, harder for me to like pull into Final Cut Pro and do what I need to do with it. So I've
Gotcha.
used just the regular 11s, but there's the setup, and I pull my GoPro off here in pre-fishing, put it on a bank to get this photo, so I can just have a cool shot from the
Ah,
bank. But I'm using the Boondocks. Actually, it's so funny. It's the landing gear arm for the landing gear, and I'm just using that. And I've got a Yak Attack ball on there, as you can see, and just have it set up
so
there. But then I
so
hardwire
no
it.
wheel, just using the arm.
Yeah, I'm just using the
Is that what
arm
that
right
is?
there. Um,
That's awesome.
but
Stable, it's not gonna move.
it's not going to move. It's stable. I still have, the ability to use the landing gear if I want. I've got a couple landing gears, so I was able to take the arm off of one of them and use it like that. But and
I
then
like it.
I've got it hardwired, so it's hard to. I don't think I had it hardwired there, but basically I do have. During the tournament, I put my light on there on that post. I put my flag on there. I put the hardwiring cable down. I like basically Velcro, those Velcro ties or zip tie. I bring it
Mhm.
down that post right there, the landing gear post, and then I've got a battery pack. You can get them at Batteries Plus X2, you know, owned stores, Batteries Plus stores. You can get that a little battery pack. You can get them anywhere, obviously, but definitely want to shout out Batteries Plus and X2, and that's just kind of how I hardwire it. So
Gotcha.
that's the setup, and it faces to me. Now
So
here's the
that's
key.
your
Yeah,
over
there's
the
the rear.
shoulder
Was
kinda
over the
look.
shoulder one. Here's the key. And you can pull that off if well, actually, if you want, bring the. Oh no, never mind. I'm gonna bring one other thing in. But here's the key. Here's the tip, guys, for GoPro. Here's your big tip. Okay, you can use 60 frames per second, 30 doesn't really matter. Whatever you want. 60 frames will give you a little bit better slow mo and get you some better options for still photos to use as stills because you just want to record. But the one behind you, just run it the whole time. The one in front, you'll notice during fights, sometimes I'll turn it on, or you could have that one voice activated so you could just tell it to come on. You're just burning data on that front one. The only time in an edit you cut to that front angle is honestly when you're landing the fish or just on it, just for the holding it up and talking about the fish and holding it and panning it across the screen. So all you really need to do is just run the back one the whole time. It gets all the action. You catch the fish, and then after you got it in the boat, hit the front one on and be like, guys, check this out, man. It's huge, whatever, 21 1/4 smallies is crazy. And then when you let it go, you can turn behind you, and I just swivel that on that, Yak Attack ball system there. And I swivel it to the side, like you saw some of those, angle it down in the water, the clear water. And I'm kind of sitting there by my kayak as I'm letting it go. And it gets, so it looks like you got like, 3 or 4 cameras on the kayak, but really it's just 2. And one of them is running the whole time. The other one's not even running. If you really feel confident enough to, like I said, talk to it or hit the button like I do in the middle of a fight, you can, and you'll get the second half of the fight and the actual true landing of the fish, but worst case, you're just holding up,
I'm
talking to it.
I'm drawing a blank on what that mode is called, but I know there's an option on some of the at least one of the older heroes that I have where it'll like cycle through. You can set a time
Yeah,
on
the
it to where it
looping,
just loop. It records over
looping.
itself like after
It does. Yep.
I think you have a couple of options as far as time. Have
You
you
can
ever
do
tried
that.
that with the front one?
I have, but let me tell you, this is actually a great segue. And this is the kind of stuff, man, that I'm glad we're talking about here on Kayak Fishing Weekly. When you fish the way I fish, and I have no clue if I've said this earlier in the show or not, but when you fish I've just done so many interviews, but when you fish, good
It's a
problem to
good
have.
problem
Don't
to
get me
have.
wrong, but my brain's they're all starting to run together. But when you fish the way I fish, I feel like we have an extra burden of responsibility to film everything. Okay. I mean, it got me out of a situation on Pickwick, right? That I had footage. It got me out of it. And if I didn't have that, who knows if I'm owning this AOI trophy right here from 2022.
I wanted that real bad, Drew.
Yeah, I know, right? But anyway, filming, we have an extra burden of responsibility and that's why at that tournament on Pickwick, even I told the tournament director, it was Dwayne Wally at that particular time, said, here's where I'm fishing on Friday, the day before the tournament started. Here's where I'm fishing, Dwayne. I've checked it all out. I've gone through it. It's clear. Same thing I did. I actually shared my location with him at that tournament. These are the things that if you're going to fish the way that I like to fish, you like to fish. A lot of people still love to do this. It's what a kayak can do different than a boat. You have an extra burden of responsibility to record as much as you can. I mean, really everything, so that if anybody doubts or questions anything, you can turn it into the tournament director. And I told Steve Owens, he gave me the at the check-in on Friday, he said, how's your practice, man? Like, what you doing? Like, thumbs up, thumbs down? And I was like, I'm feeling confident, And he actually called me out on Thursday at the maybe it was Thursday or Friday. Thursday, there was a cool meet and greet they had, but he's like, hey man, you don't seem like yourself. You seem a little off. You're not acting like yourself. You're not off. Well, it's because I was so stressed and nervous about what I'd found. And I knew I was potentially on winning fish for the biggest event in our sport. And so anyway, we have a little bit extra burden, I think, of responsibility so I don't use the looping mode so that I can have everything there. And then I just hit stop record after I've caught a fish so that I know that you can just scrub to the end of my clips. And if there's a fish there, it's just easy to find those fish catches, and everything else is just kind of ancillary. It's there just in case I need it to show, hey, here's some of the, the hardest attainments I had to do. You can see I'm floating, my motor's banging, but I'm still floating. No problem. It's, whatever, 7-8 inches of water right here. And if I need to ever prove anything, I got it to show Steve if he ever asks for it. And that's just something I feel like we got to do if you're going to fish this style, because
it's a good point. A lot of the guys, and I know other guys that aren't even necessarily fishing the same style, but I've heard Russ does, similar, just, when you have the kind of success that he's had.
Yep.
And I'm not, he's not the only one, but it makes sense. You have detractors or people that question, and hey, if you want to see, it's good to have that to kind of cover yourself.
Yeah.
For when you do have the folks that
that's right,
that don't believe how good you are.
Yeah. It's true. It's true, man. At least you have the proof to promote yourself and your brand, the series, grow all this stuff. And I told Steve just right then and there, I said, Steve, I'm going up that river. I'm going as far as I can go. And just so he knew, I was like, and same Mark Cisneros. I told Mark where I was going to be. I said, dude, if you want to get off that boat in the lake and come get a picture, there's a spot pretty darn close to a road that you can hop off, and literally I'll be there, 1 o'clock probably ish. And hopefully, Lord willing, I make it up there and the motor works and everything, goes to plan. And he couldn't. He's got all the people to cover on the lake, and I don't have a lot of coverage on myself, so I have to do it on my own with the GoPro. And that's where it's pretty cool that GoPro sponsoring the new Kayak Adventure series that we started, right? And so it was really cool of Steve to mention that on stage and talk about Hobie Bass Open Series and KBF, and he on the classic stage to show. I mean, that was one of the coolest things that man has ever done, because to show respect to the sport and the others who are working just as hard as he is. And Bassmaster is all about bass fishing and growing the sport as a whole. They're doing their deal, and there's 6 events, and they realize there's plenty of time, and they want to get people continue fishing all these other things as well. So it's pretty cool, because we got a taste. I put that edit together for that big fish, sent it to Bassmaster, to Steve and Dwayne at Tourney X, who does an amazing job as well. That platform is incredible for our sport. We have that so easy to use that. But I sent to both those guys, and Dwayne, I think, maybe was helping get some of the stuff with the Bassmaster folks on the big screen, some of the photos of the big fish for each of us anglers that were on the top 10. And I sent that 1-minute edit for that big bass to them. And to their credit, they were like, this is cool. Let's and they put it on the big screen behind me as I'm talking to the crowd with Steve, after I won. And the crowd got a little taste of what the Kayak Adventure series is going to be all about. The top 10 hopefully every one of them having a clip. I mean, worst case, just your cell phone there, you holding one of your biggest fish, you put it on selfie, and just that. But I mean, hopefully you got a GoPro and you film the catch. And if not, at least turned it on and filmed you releasing it and talking about it. That's the premise, and it's going to be cool because it promotes the sport. It promotes us as anglers. It gives us that validity to the catches, because who can question, here's the footage. You want to see the big fish? Here they are. you want to see how I got up, I'll post a video edit showing me going up some of that stuff too. So you guys can see how it all went. There's a lot to, and I'll pull a edit together of all the fish catches. I've got all 10 that I scored on camera. So
I want to see that attainment to see how
yeah,
difficult it is, and if it's something that I could even feasibly do, or how much
I don't
I'll
know,
have to
man.
start working out to actually be able
Well,
to do it.
it's working out. It's a workout doing it. But one thing, and we're going to be holding some of these ACA instructionals at the Kayak Adventure Series, that first Shoaly Palooza event on May 3rd and 4th, on the 5th, on that Sunday that's open. I know Jeff Little, Russ Snyder's, Dustin Hoy. I don't know if I'm going to do one or not, but they're holding an ACA class, and we've all gotten certified by the American Canoe Association on flat water paddling, safety. And so we're also going to incorporate fishing, of course, tips and tricks and how it all applies. Because if I don't know whitewater kayaking skills and reading the river, you know what I mean, how to ferry and eddy up, and find where the calmest water is to make my way up, I don't win. I don't make that, just doesn't happen. So the more you learn about that kind of stuff in conjunction with what you know about how to catch the fish, where to catch the fish, the proper setup, rods, reel, everything kind of about the environment, the world, and how this, cold-blooded animal and what makes them tick. I mean, it just kind of all has to get wrapped into one. And you learn a little bit, you pick up a little tip here and there that just kind of keeps you incrementally. I've used this dumb analogy all the time on shows about once upon a time, someone shaved all their hair on their body, when they were Olympic swimmers, and it gained them a
Swim
0.2 of a
faster.
second and I'm picking those little things up here and there. This is from learning the environment and how it affects. And this is from whatever, like paddling skills and whitewater skills. And this is from, learning the torpedo and how to get up. And this is from fishing techniques and whatever. So it's like, boom, boom, boom. It just kind of all stacks up. But those ACA courses are going to be critical because kayak anglers are the number one in the paddle sports category. We're the number one leader in deaths in paddle sports, not whitewater kayakers, not recreational kayakers, kayak fishermen, because we focus on the fishing and not the paddle sports and not the safety and all that. So those classes will be big, and there will only be 15 people that will be allowed to take them. So, cause it fills up for instructor to teacher ratio is like 5-1 or whatever, 1-5.
Gotcha.
So maybe I said it right the first time, but, so yeah, you guys take those. It'll help you become a better angler when you become a better, paddler, for sure. So, and you're going to be safe. Can't catch fish if you're wasting time, getting stuck, getting swept into things and obstacles that you didn't know how to, avoid, or even, can't catch fish if you're dead either. So, obviously, so you got to stay safe
I'm gonna
out there.
quote you on that.
Yeah.
I was thinking something
Breaking.
similar driving on my way out there. Normally I've gotten better at these long distance drives, but on my way out to Tenkiller, for whatever reason, I was just so groggy that first day, and I only made it, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours, and I knew that I was not going to be able to put in the amount of time that I wanted to put in, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to get there at least, and I just stopped early, and it's complete opposite coming home. Way home, 17 hours straight, no problem, felt good, but for whatever reason.
Gotta,
So that knowing your limitations, whether it's driving to the lake or whether, once you're on
right.
the water, you know, not putting yourself in situations you're not equipped to handle is important. So I think it's great that
Mhm.
your new series is going to be incorporating some of that teaching as well as all the fun
Yeah.
aspect.
Yeah, that's true. We got seminars on Friday mornings called the Bass U Brunch. So Bass U Brunch, come get some food. Come to the seminar, learn some stuff from some of the top anglers and fisheries biologists and folks like that. So should be fun. A little stressed about it all. It's we're a month away, a little bit more than a month away, and there's a lot to do still. I'm blown away by what Steve and AJ and Chad and everybody else that runs these national trails is able to do. And I've ran one before, so I get it, but it certainly is snowballed into something a little bit bigger than even I expected. But I'm excited about it, and lets people kind of get out and fish in a little bit different way. I'd say a style in a way that you and I, love and appreciate. It's not that you can't fish that way in these tournaments. Obviously, I was able to, but it's definitely a little bit more difficult to do that. So we'll have to see how people like that format. We'll see, because I mean, we need multiple formats. Every sport's got it. Sand volleyball,
Mhm.
hardcore volleyball, dirt track racing, pavement racing. It's cool to celebrate the different formats and styles and different tournament trails we have out there, because variety is the spice of life. And we're all different, have different personalities. So it may not be for you, but it's okay. It could be for somebody else. So we will
I like it.
see you out there, guys.
Well, Drew, thanks for making some time for us.
Yeah, buddy.
Congratulations again. It's a well-deserved win. I think you outsmarted and outworked the whole field. So I'm very impressed. I swear, I did not think it could be won the way that you did it. So you continue to impress me.
Thanks, man. I don't know how long I can keep doing. I've given away all the juice all the time, and body's getting older and older, and it's feeling worse and worse after every trip. So, we'll see. I'm not fishing a ton of events this year, but maybe I can give it my all, just like I did in this one at those events, since I'm doing not quite as many as I'm obviously spending time with this KAS thing. So
Sure.
I'll be following
And you,
along on all the other ones and with you guys this year, and you and Bailey and everybody else. And look forward to seeing it.
awesome. Anybody you want to shout out before I let you go?
I mean, Real Tree Fishing, they're my headline sponsor. I'll definitely give them a shout out. Obviously, we talked about the baits, the boat, the kayak, Crescent Kayak Shoaly, obviously X2. I mean, they power my truck, they power my GoPros. Like I said, they're always super supportive. Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much it, man. I can't think of anybody else. There's, follow me at Drew Gregory Fishing. I talk about all the rest of my sponsors. If I start naming them, I'll forget somebody, and it's just like it's whatever. So you guys will see. And I appreciate all the time and everything you guys do for the sport here at Kayak Fishing Weekly. Keep it up.
Thanks again, Drew.
Yep. See you.
Drew Gregory, your 2024 Bassmaster Kayak Series champion. So I'm thrilled for Drew. Love talking to him, and like I told him, I'm amazed at what he was able to do at that fishery. I saw that, and I immediately thought it could not be done that way. So I went and tried to kind of compete with the live scopers fishing deep offshore stuff down by the lake. But I think it's awesome that kayak tournaments, national tournaments, and even a championship can still be won sort of with that old school style. I think that's evidence that yeah, you don't have to have the fanciest kayak, the most expensive setup, all the latest and greatest technology. It definitely helps, but you don't have to have it. You can still get out there with a paddle into backwater places, the kinds of things that drew me to kayak fishing. It's still a viable way to do well in these tournaments. So congrats again to Drew. And that's going to bring us to the Kayak Kings and Queens of the Week, the part of the show where we highlight folks who have done something amazing in the world of kayak fishing. And of course, I'm going to have a couple of folks that I want to recognize for what they accomplished at this tournament, our Bassmaster Kayak Series Championship. But the first, I guess before that, I want to recognize our first Queen of the Week. Actually, we've got a Queen of the Week. I want to recognize Wesley Gray. I was listening to a podcast on the Paddle and Fin Network where she and I think Kate Baca were guests, and she mentioned a story. So I went back and checked out her YouTube video. It was pretty cool. She had we'll call it a weird encounter with somebody at the boat ramp, claiming that they were a game warden, and she sees them dump trash, throw beer cans out of the car. And a lot of people would just, let that go. She actually called them out based on what she said in the video. I have no, I do not believe that those folks were game wardens. I've not known a game warden to disrespect the environment that way, but I thought it was awesome that Wesley called the guy out, stood her ground, and the guy actually went and picked the trash up. So props to her, our first queen of the week, Wesley Gray. Second, uh, we're gonna have our second king of the week is Mr. Damian Tao. That was loud. Um, Damien, for anybody who wasn't paying attention last year, Damien's a California angler, uh, one of the top guys out there. For folks that know, Greg Blanchard's mentioned him. In Greg's opinion, I think he's the top kayak angler out west. And this is the second tournament that I know of where he's come east to compete with some of the big sticks out here. Last year, he was runner up at the Kayak Series Championship to Russ. This year, he finishes fourth. This guy is for real. For anybody who thought last year was a fluke, Damien has proven him wrong. Back to back top fives in Bassmaster Kayak Series Championship events. Very impressive, and I thought deserving of a spot as one of our Kings of the Week. So congrats to Damien. And then our final King of the Week, I want to recognize somebody. I've recognized guys who have sort of done this in the past where you maybe have a tough day in a tournament. And I've mentioned how a lot of times I have a tough day in a tournament and then I have another tough day. It's very difficult for me anyway to bounce back. I think for a lot of people to bounce back after a bad finish. But Mr. John Dalton had a tough event on day one. 57 inches, 103rd. So not not the day that he was hoping for, I'm sure. Instead of packing it up and going home like some folks do after a tough day, um, he gets back after it and puts up one of the biggest limits of the tournament the following day. Puts up 93 and a quarter inches. He jumps all the way to 49th place, gets inside of the top 50 in a tournament with 100 and almost 170 anglers. Impressive, great resilience that John showed, and for that, he is our third King of the Week. That's going to do it for this episode of Kayak Fishing Weekly. Tune in next Thursday. We're going to have some more kayak fishing conversation. And something that I'm thinking about, feel free to reach out, hit me up on my socials, comment on Instagram. You can comment on the Kayak Fishing Weekly show or on my Justin_Largen, my personal Instagram page. But let us know. I want to get some feedback. I'm thinking about adding a segment, trying to give something to I guess a broader audience. I'm thinking we might have some guys who are newer to the sport. I know I love talking about tournaments. I probably do it too much and talking to these guys who are great tournament anglers. But I'm thinking of adding a segment, incorporating some tips, money saving tips, ways to kayak fish on a budget, something along those lines, or just some beginner skills, beginner tips, things you can do. I'm thinking of adding a segment on that. I'd love to hear feedback from guys. So let me know what you think if you'd like to see some content like that in addition to what we're also doing. Um, Let me know. Otherwise, I hope to see you next Thursday. See you then.